everyone and welcome to my Skulduggery Pleasant Last Stand of Dead Men reading vlog. So this is going to be obviously my reading vlog for Last Stand of Dead Men, which is the 8th book in the Skulduggery Pleasant series, and this is one of the ones that I have only ever read once compared to all of the others. So I know basically nothing about this book. I remember that there's a pyramid. There's something to do with the pyramid. I remember that there is, I think this is the one where Ghastly dies and where it's revealed who the man with the golden eyes is, and that's about it. That is literally all I remember from this book, and I am so excited to be getting into this one and reading it again for the first time, remembering everything that happens in this book, and just generally to really enjoy it and just get stuck back into the world of Skulduggery again for the 8th time this year. So with that, let's get on with it. So I'm now 42 pages in, and I've got to admit none of this is coming back to me. Well, some bits are coming back to me, like the fact that I'm pretty sure a giant like sanctuary ends up in Rawhaven and sort of crushes the old one, and the man with the golden eyes is one of the dead men, and I think there's something to do with the pyramid and Valkyrie like powering up and becoming Darkess in a pyramid. I could be wrong on this. That's the only thing I can kind of remember at the moment, but I've got to say I love seeing Gracious again, and just the monster hunters in general. I really like them as characters and everything. I find them really funny and really amusing, so I really like them. I also like the fact that Gracious is a giant nerd and displays that in like his clothing and things like this. Really enjoy that. I'm really liking the fact as well that Valkyrie's got this new necromancer ring, and it's like, oh, we know that obviously Darkess is coming and all the rest of it, so it's sort of like she's slowly powering up, but that's not exactly a good thing as well. I'm loving like the fact that she's now got the car, and it's the Oompa Loompa car, because I just like that callback to like the original books where Skulduggery is driving around in a really bright orange car and things like this. And I'm just loving the fact that as well she's now like 18, so time has really moved forward in this series, and she is now reaching the surge, and I'm pretty sure it is the surge that causes Darkess to appear, I think. Again, it's been a very long time since I read this book. It's been like 2 years and I haven't read it since in like the intervening years, so I can't remember much about it, but I am really enjoying it. I kind of like the fact that it sort of feels like I'm reading this for the first time over again, which I really enjoy, and I'm just excited to continue because I really like this book. Obviously I do, but I'm really excited to just carry on reading essentially, like always. So I've just finished chapter 5, and I've got to admit I really enjoy that chapter because it's all from Ghastly's point of view, and I really like seeing Ghastly's point of view because it's like you don't usually see it, and it's sort of nice to see sort of his, like how he's dealing with the fact that he's now an elder and how he wants to go back to the shop, but also him remembering his mother as well, and like everything he's been taught and how he fights and things like this. I find it really interesting, and also the fact that the accelerator didn't break at all after being exploded. Like, of course it didn't. What did they expect? Like, of course it wasn't gonna break. It's the accelerator. Salt and Co were idiots for thinking it would. Doesn't it turn out that China and Skulduggery are actually working together, and he's known all this time about the fact that she betrayed his family and got them killed? I'm pretty sure that's what happened. I'm like 90% sure that that's what's happened, and they actually discussed it a bit at the Requiem ball while they were dancing, I think. I'm like 90% sure that's right, because I'm pretty sure China ends up helping them again and then nearly dies in the fight. I'm pretty sure that's right, but my mind's drawn a blank. I can't remember. I'm pretty sure China does go to extremes to help, I think. I can't remember. Cannot remember to save my life. I also really like the fact that, going back a bit, that we actually got a mention of Maya Sotis as well, who is in Armageddon out here in one of the stories, and I really like that she got this mention, because even though she is only a brief blink and you'll miss it mention, it's still really nice to sort of see the connection between the two. And I also really like the fact, like going forward again to chapter 7, that this is technically the first time we've met Saracen Rue. Like, he's in Maleficent 7, but if you haven't read that one, then you don't know who he is. So it's really interesting to see him turn up here, and he's just fitted in so perfectly, and you get to know about him here as well, so it doesn't really matter if you haven't read Maleficent 7. And I really like that connection, and just I really like Saracen. I've got to admit, I just really like the dead men. I just really like the dead men, quite frankly. That's all I've got. I just really like them. They're just fun. I love this quote on page 92. It's and so you've officially joined the ranks of the fearless vampire killers, up there with Blade and Buffy and other anti-vampire propaganda. You must be so proud. And as someone who grew up on Blade and then got really into Buffy in my teenage years, I love that reference. Obviously I love all of Derek Landy's references, but those two are some of my favourite, I think. Putting the sanctuaries at war with each other is such an interesting concept, because obviously it means that obviously they're all fighting each other, so you do get to see more of like the world around and outside of Ireland, but then you also have this added extra bit of like pressure for this novel, which I really like as well. I also like the fact that we brought back Kenny. Don't ask me why, but I quite like the fact that we brought back Kenny, because obviously he disappeared in the last book and now he's back again, and I really like seeing him again, because obviously he plays a like quite important part in like the end of this book. Actually, it's the end of this book. And like the beginning of the next one, so I really like that as well. And just, it's sort of like, I like how Derek Landy just sort of drops these characters in, and then you sort of forget about them for a little while, and then they come back again, and I really like that. It's the same with the man with the golden eyes, where it's like he's just sort of dropped in at little points, and you don't see that much of him, but when you do, it's like, oh hell, it's them again. But also the fact with the vision as well, from Cassandra Faros, you've got this idea that Ravel is screaming in pain, and I'm suddenly like, wait a minute, is it you who's the man with golden eyes? I think it is. I think they've got the wrong idea of what's going on or something, but he is the man with the golden eyes, if I remember rightly. I'm like 90% sure on this, but like I'm reasonably convinced of this, but now I can't tell. And now I'm like, am I getting this wrong? I don't know. I genuinely don't know now, and now I'm confused. Now I'm confusing myself, so I'm just like, is it you? Isn't it you? Can't remember. I'm like 90% sure it is though. Like 90%. I knew it. I knew that Myra was the one who attacked Fletcher. I knew it. I remember. Like, it was in the back of my brain as soon as Myra turned up and it was mentioned he was in Australia. I was like, yes, she attacks him. And I just remembered that, and I remembered it like while I was reading the that specific book, so like the last one, and it was like, oh yeah, she attacks him, and it's just happened, and I was like, yes, she attacked him. Forgot she stabbed him. Thought she attacked him when he got away, but she actually stabbed him. Forgot that bit, but I remembered something. Yay! I also forgot that the rest of the sanctuaries were going after all the sensitives and everything. They weren't just going to try and take out the elders and Skulduggery and Valkyrie. I forgot they were also going to try and take out a whole lot of other people as well, which is just brutal. I do really love the dead men team up scene, because it's just really nice to see them all back together again and see them properly interacting, so you sort of get this idea as to how they became the dead men during the war with Malevolent. But I also like the fact that they're just like, yeah, when we originally introduced the dead men, we punched him across the jaw, because it's such a man thing to do, which I really enjoyed. But they're like, nah, we'll hug this time, and I just really like that. I love the fact that Valkyrie's got a crush on one of them, because I would too, and I just really like as well, like Gracious and like the monster hunters. I love those two the most, even though they're not in the scene. I just generally really enjoy them, and this heist is coming back to me, specifically this heist and the town of Wolf Songs. If I remember rightly, it's a ghost town, and they think they're surrounded by people, but it's actually ghosts, if I remember rightly, and they're so convincing that they don't realise they're ghosts. Like 90% sure that happens, so that's quite interesting as well. So it's starting to come back to me very slowly, but I quite enjoy that, because it means that a lot of things are still shocking. I love that even in the most serious of situations, Skulduggery and Valkyrie can still play around and like hit each other with sticks like absolute children. I love that. I just love like their playful nature, and how it's like, yeah, we're in a serious situation, we're about to like, we're on the precipice of war and all the rest of it, we're gonna hit each other over the head with sticks first, just to prove a point. All the old war stories with the dead men as well, I find so much fun, because it's like you finally get this insight into who they were and what they did during the war, and how it all sort of happened and how they got together and everything else. But what I find really interesting is the Lord Vile story, because obviously none of them know that they were facing Skulduggery at the time. And they still don't know now, so they're just talking casually about it like it was any other villain, whereas Skulduggery's gone so quiet because he's like, yeah, I remember that, I was there, I was the one basically torturing you, in that sort of like way of having all of the dead people rise again, like necromancy, and have them all sort of calling out to them and all the rest of it, and that sort of mental torture essentially. And I really like seeing Skulduggery's reaction to that, in the sense that he's so like quiet about it, and how like every time Vile is brought up he does go quiet, and the fact that no one has noticed, like no one has noticed this whatsoever, which I find really sort of amusing, because it's like, how haven't you noticed this? Because it's blatantly obvious that the man who talks through everything goes quiet whenever you mention a certain subject. So I find that quite interesting, but just all of the stories of the dead men as well are just so much fun. I love reading about them, and I would genuinely take a series of books just based during the war with the dead men, because I think they would be brilliant. So I've just gotten to a small little X-Men reference in here as well, because Fletcher's saying that he's talking about the first times he teleported, and he says, then a few weeks later it happened again. The only teleporter I'd ever heard of was Nightcrawler. You know him? Gracious nodded. Kurt Wagner from X-Men. And it's like, love that, because X-Men nerd here, love Nightcrawler, grew up loving Nightcrawler, so fun little reference there that I just enjoy so much. If I remember rightly, Fletcher does join the Monster Hunters, or I could be entirely wrong on that, or maybe he considers it. I think there's something to do with him and the Monster Hunters. I know they've teamed up here, but I'm pretty sure they team up like later, and they're like together as like a trio now. I can't remember at all. Can't even remember if the Monster Hunters survived the next book and a half. I can't remember whatsoever. Also, Palavar Graves as a name sounds really familiar, and he's one of the elders of the London Sanctuary, not Sanctum, that's Doctor Strange, but I'm pretty sure that he's significant, or I'm just remembering his name from reading this last time. I can't tell, quite frankly, but he does sound familiar. Also, we have had now mentions of Heroes as well, which was one of my favourite TV shows growing up. And there's also like Where's Wally references, and then I did take a photo of something else, I think, because I'm taking photos to remind myself. No, that was it. But I really like the Heroes mention and things like this. I just love all these different like little pop culture references that are just sprinkled throughout, because it proves to me that Derek Lanning has a very similar taste in TV and things like this to me, which is just fun, because I like having similar tastes in these things to my favourite authors, because it's like, we'd be friends in like a pig's fly situation. But I find that really interesting, and I love spotting all of the little references, even when they're not subtle like the ones in this one. There are probably subtler references that I haven't picked up on, but the ones I have picked on, I'm loving. Also, speaking of senses of humour and like authors getting along and all the rest of it, it's just the next chapter, one of the opening paragraphs is about the Maybury sex tablets. Just gets me, because this is my sense of humour entirely. I am someone who loves watching stuff like Final Destination, Zombieland, you know, like the slightly gross, gory, violent stuff. And it just says, so from what Fletcher had heard over the past week or so, Di was one of sextuplets, and the only decent one at that. His brother Deacon, a pretty powerful sensitive, was a bit of a scumbag, all things considered, and we met him in Armageddon Out of Here, which was fun, so it was a nice little reference there. But at least he was still living. His other brother, David, had sealed himself in a secret room and promptly run out of air. David had fallen into a wood chipper, Daveth had been eaten by rabid goats, and Davon had died from intestinal distress. And that just gets me. That is such my sense of humour, and I love that. That just made me laugh. It was just like, just the idea of being eaten by rabid goats and wood chippers and things like this. My Zombieland loving brain loves that kind of meta image. It's hilarious. I love seeing Chyna's fight scenes in this, because usually she's so above it all in her way, and she's sort of just there's sort of like that guy in the chair, in the sense that she's the one with all the information and all the power, and she doesn't really get involved. But now she's actually on the run, and you're actually seeing all of the different like traps she's put around her body and sigils, and like all of her different types of magic coming in, and obviously how she fights as well. And I find that really fun to actually see like one of these characters who's been so above it all for so long be right in the middle of the grit and the dirt of the fighting and the war. I'm really enjoying that. Even though she hasn't quite caught up with Skulduggery and everybody yet, she's still like not fighting the war, she's fighting to survive. But quite frankly, same difference. But I am pretty sure she does team up with Skulduggery again, and that her sort of leaving them and him sort of being really angry with her is real, but at the same time they have a plan. I'm like 90% sure they have a plan, and that this is all part of the plan. So Madam Mist is sneaking about throughout Rawhaven. The Rawhaven mages are not allowing anybody else into the building or into Rawhaven itself. And Ravel, Ghastly, and I've forgotten who else. Somebody else is also going with, give me a second. So Shudder. Yeah. Ghastly dies in this one then. Great! I thought it was the next one, but it's actually this one. Damn! I forgot that entirely. Damn! Ghastly and Shudder are dead. Ravel did it. I knew it was Ravel. Knew it was Ravel. And I hate it. Like, I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming. And I'm still just like, damn it. And it's still like, I'm still really sad about it. I'm still sitting here going, why did it have to happen? Why did they have to die? Why did it have to be Ravel? Why is Ravel such a traitorous asshole? Why did Ghastly have to die? Why did Shudder have to die? I liked them. And I'm just like, now I'm just like, I liked Ghastly. He had a chance of possibly getting Tanith back. Possibly. And now he's dead. Derek Landy is a sadist. Derek Landy is a sadist. That's all I have. He's a sadist. We've just got to the pyramid. And I knew there was a pyramid. I knew that there was a pyramid, and I'm just sitting there going, oh no, because this is where she becomes Darkess. Something happens and Darkess rises. And obviously we've just seen the return of Kenny, who's talking to China, and I've just remembered Kenny gives the video to her parents, so then they know everything and they find out everything. But like, obviously they don't like, but that's mostly in the next book. And what else has happened? I'm trying to remember everything now. And obviously China's stuck in Rawhaven and everything else, and I'm just like, yeah, I forgot just how bad things get. And I thought more of it happened in the next book, in the Dying of the Light, not this one. And I'm just like, oh, here we go. It's all going downhill from here. Great. I absolutely love chapter 60, where Valkyrie and Darkess are having a conversation in her mind, and it's just so interesting actually hearing a full conversation between the two of them, instead of just these little comments from Darkess, and seeing how Darkess is like manipulating it and being like, let me out, let me out, let me out, and stuff like this, while you're still also getting Valkyrie trying to escape. I thought that was very clever. And also, those witches are badass, just firing these energy blasts and blasting off arms and legs, like brutal but kind of badass at the same time. And now I'm just like, yeah, I remember this. I remember this. I remember her becoming Darkess in the pyramid, which has obviously just happened, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's coming back to me now. I remember that bit, and I remember Kenny. Can't remember what actually happens through most of this bit though, so I'm running out of time to read today, but I'm really desperate to finish this, but there's no way I'm going to be able to read another 140 pages in the next half hour. But I'm going to attempt to read as much as possible because the action has kicked off. I love the chapter where we actually get the reasoning behind what Ravel's done and saying that how he was sort of recovering with the children of the spider after he was tortured during the war and how that sort of changed his mind on everything. I found that really, really interesting, and also just seeing how China tries to like protect herself all the time through like twisted manipulation and lies and half-truths. I love these kind of conversations because it's just this brilliant back and forth between them, and I love that. And now I'm sitting there going, when does Dark S turn back up again? Because obviously Dark S has risen, and I know a lot's going on, but it's like, can we get what Dark S is doing? I'm sure there's a reason why we haven't got it yet, but I am just like, where is Dark S? That's what I want to know. Where is Dark S? I adore seeing Skulduggery fight alongside China, because you never see China fight until this book, and then seeing them side by side is so cool. Like, I can't remember if China was ever actually in love with Skulduggery, like Ravel said, but I love seeing them fight side by side. It's so much fun to see the two of them working together, like, again anyway, and just basically for the first time as well in terms of like in battle. I absolutely love it. And I've also forgotten where Tanith is. I don't know where Dark S is, and I don't know where Tanith is. I've completely forgotten where Tanith has gone. That's not good. I can't remember where she is, but I'm sure she's somewhere. I think she's buggered off from the battle. I can't remember. Genuinely can't remember. So I have now officially just finished Last Stand of Dead Men for the second time ever, and I've got to admit I really, really enjoyed this book, like I always do with all of the Skulduggeries, but it turns out I forgot a lot from this book. Like I said at the beginning, I remember that there was something to do with the pyramid, I remember Ghastly died, and I remembered that we found out who the man with the golden eyes was, and I also remembered that Kenny was going to reveal to Valkyrie's parents magic. That's all I remembered, but I forgot absolutely everything else. I forgot like the giant battle, I forgot the fact that as soon as Dark S rises you don't see her again until right at the end of the battle. I forgot China nearly sacrificing herself. I forgot basically everything, quite frankly. What I did find interesting though was that I was convinced that Saracen Rue and the others also died. I thought all of the dead men died apart from Skulduggery. And the monster hunters also went, but I now don't know if that's in the next book. That could be in the next book. I don't know. But I am sitting there going, was that in the next book, or am I just completely making that up? I can't remember, but I did really, really enjoy this one. The bit with Ghastly still hits me in the feelings, and I did just generally really, really enjoy this one. I really like the battle scenes of this. I really like how it's sort of amping everything up. So we've gone from like fighting faceless ones and everything else to suddenly Dark S has now risen, and now it's all like, and all the sanctuaries are against each other, and there's been this big war and everything. So now we are very much at the climax of the series, and I really, really enjoyed that. I really like wish there was a bit more humour in this one, because this one sort of stepped down on the humour front. But at the same time, that makes complete sense considering that this one is so dark in a lot of places. But I still really liked the pop culture references. I really like the interactions between all of the characters and exactly where this one sort of went in terms of story. And I just generally really, really enjoyed this one. So I'm going to be giving it 4 stars. And I now cannot wait to read the final book, which is The Dying of the Light, which is the final book in the first series, which is the final book I have ever read in Skulduggery. So then after next month, absolutely everything is going to be brand new to me, which is so exciting. I cannot wait. But all of that is for the other vlog. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give me a thumbs up. Comment down below, tell me what you thought of this book the first time around and all the plot twists and everything else. I'd love to know. Or if you don't have that much time, leave me a skull emoji down below to let me know that you were here. I'll also leave a link down below to all my social media if you want to check it out, including to the Comic Book Sanctum, which is my website dedicated to Marvel Comics. And if you want to see any more of my videos, please click subscribe here, and over here will be the link to my previous video. But until next time everyone, bye!